That's it then for another week. Coming up next time, amongst other items, swimming and an exciting climax to the Porsche Super Cup. Join us again then for Sport AM.
Wednesday, Galatasaray versus Manchester United. Thursday, Aston Villa versus Inter Milan. The European match live. Classic football, Wednesday and Thursday on ITV.
You know that little crack you've been trying to ignore? Well, surprisingly, Autoglass can usually repair it without replacing the windscreen. It'll be strong enough to pass the MOT, and it could even be free. Provided, that is, you call us in time.
In case you hadn't noticed, there's something totally unexpected at Northern Electric. Something totally out of the blue. Yes, we've got into gas with a super new range of stylish gas cookers from names like Valor, Parkinson Cohen, Stoves, Frida and New World. And with nothing to pay until 1995, we're really cooking. Gas, another unbeatable offer from Northern Electric, only where you see this sign.
Stop drain blockages with this handy drain cover at only 99p and prevent blocked gutters with Gutter Guard, $4.99 a roll from Dickens.
Now the legendary rock band Jethro Tull look back over their first 20 years.
While others shout of what disaster. Oh, keep on giving, let's go living in the past.
They'll never make it in a million years.
I was just absolutely struck by them. They just made such an enormous impact on me.
I heard Living in the Past on Radio Caroline one day and bought a couple of albums and was hooked.
Especially when we came to doing Living in the Past, I knew it was bound to get airplay, bound to get that rush of sales in the first week or so that would get it into the charts and then get it more airplay and get a top of the pops and so on and so forth. If you're saying to me, did I hear it and say, well, that's a number one or whatever, I mean, I shouldn't think I did. I don't think I thought in those terms.
Hello, I'm Anne Nightingale. Now, have you ever wondered why it is that some bands, having had initial success, then disappear almost as quickly as they arrive, whereas others manage to sustain that success and also a very loyal band of followers, like Jethro Tull. It's amazing to think they've been going for 20 years, and the band themselves didn't think they were going to last. They didn't even get off to a very good start. The label on their first record said Jethro Tull.
Chrysalis Records really only came into existence because of Jethro Tull. We might have come into existence with another group. I mean, it's difficult to say what might have happened if, but Chrysalis Records came into existence because we couldn't get Jethro Tull a record deal other than with MGM Records, who printed their name wrong on the label and wouldn't pay £50 advance for them.
I started a booking agency with a partner called Chris Wright, And in the very early days, what our area of specialisation was blues groups. And at that was a sort of beginning of a whole movement, you know, that sort of spawned Led Zeppelin and Jethro Tull and a lot of other people. But when we started, there were just like half a dozen bands, Fleetwood Mac and Chicken Shack, and we were one of the agencies specialising in that, and it was a growing thing, and we couldn't get enough bands.
Monday morning, the phone rang. You always go in Monday mornings and you wonder how the weekends have gone with all the different groups you supplied to places around the country. So I picked up the phone, and it was the promoter from one of the Jethro Tull stroke Bag of Blues dates. And he said, "Great band you sent me on Friday." I said, "Oh, you know, that's a relief, you know, their first ever date." And he was actually named by a chap that worked for us at the time called Dave Robson, who was working for us as a booker. So neither Terry Ellis nor myself can take credit for that.
1, 2, 3, 4.
£15 group, I mean, into clubs that weren't booking a group because they drew people in, because they had their own audience. And you book people on the strength of their name and their photograph, you know, primarily the name. So you know, we call around our punters and say, well, we've got this group, and we give them the name, and if they like the name, they book the group. So we were trying a different name each week.
We used to have games with artists at the time. They used to love to come in the office, and I'd say, "Get out of the office. I can't sell you to promoters if you're in the office." So, but they all wanted to be in the office, you know, because that was the only way they could chase up the work. So I think Ian hid under the desk so that I wouldn't see him, so that we could get on and get the bookings for them. His way of making sure that, you know, if there was a date going, that he got it.
A lot of people's first memories of Jethro Tull was in the late 60s when they had a weekly residency at the Marquee.
We worked on the basis here of a resident evening for groups, and every night over a given period of time there was a showcase for the groups here. And in 1968 we had Joe Cocker resident here on Wednesdays, and The Nice, which was the precursor of Emerson, Lake and Palmer. They were here on Fridays, and later in that year we found Jethro Tull. And it's a very interesting story because they came from the same management stable as 10 years after, who had scored an enormous success here at the club.
My memories of entering the Marquee Club, this hallowed, very famous sort of starting point for the Rolling Stones, the Yardbirds. I mean, everybody kind of started there. And I mean, this was the place where your future was made or otherwise.
It was a very jazz-orientated group, which I liked. And we put them in here on Friday evenings, and they built up a tremendous following.
And you look quite like big band kind of music, and all this rock and roll and blues was sort of tolerable, because it was the nearest thing in the pop genre to the sort of music he really liked. It had some aspiration towards musicianship and some relation historically through to the origins of big band jazz, the common roots of blues. So John G became, if not a friend, at least a sort of supporter of the band, in the sense that during the few times we played there early on, he began to take notice of us, rebooked us, gave us what was termed as a residency, which I think was playing, if not every week, every second week, usually on a Wednesday, which was the lousy night. You know, we finally made it to Friday nights.
Put in your stable, 6 golden apples bought with my pay. I am the first piper who calls the sweet tune, but I must be gone by the 7th day. So come on, I'm a whistler, I have a pipe and a drum to play. Get ready for the whistler, I whistle along on the 7th day. Whistle along on the 7th day. I've left behind me, many's the day when I have done wrong, but I'll be yours forever and ever. I'm in the saddle and whistle along. So come on, I'm a whistler, I have a pipe and a drum to play. Get ready for the whistler, I whistle along on the 7th day. Whistle along on the 7th day.
When we were actually on the end of our first American tour, we were in Boston, staying at a holiday, and Terry, our manager, said, look, can you go and write a hit single, because we want to try and get you on top of the pops. So, sure, yes, go.
What I recognised was that Ian had a very special talent, and I talked to him in very, very early days about thinking of himself not as a performer in a blues pop group, but to think of himself as an entertainer.
Unfashionable to the end, drag his way to life. Desert bells sparkle, yesterday's dreams, the transport cab, prophet of doom, ringing no change in his a double sound seems it is hers to obey the gloom.
I found it very difficult. You were always expected to do rehearsals, and they wanted to know what you were going to do when you did the take. And if you're playing to a real audience and you're doing it absolutely for real, I mean, you don't sort of sit and analyse what it is you're doing or where you're moving your arms or jumping around or whatever. I mean, you just do it. And I found it impossible to rehearse and show the cameraman what I was going to do, or the director. And I would just stand, like this, sort of in front of the camera and be doing this and singing away or playing the flute or whatever, and terrified to move at all. And then it would come to the take, live transmission, and all the thing they'd written down as to where I would be standing in the second chorus was completely to cop, because when it actually came to the take, I'd be sort of spinning about and jumping out of frame and coming back in again. And I mean, I remember sort of, you know, these Top of the Pops actually, I remember seeing something being replayed later on. And I mean, I wasn't there half the time, in and out of frame, and they were pulling their hair out and screaming and shouting at me because I hadn't rehearsed properly. And I always found it very difficult to rehearse.
Well, the dawn was coming, heard him ringing on my bed. He said my name's a teacher, oh, that is what I call myself. And I have a lesson that I must impart to you. It's an old expression, but I must insist it's true. Jump up, look around, find yourself some fun. No sense in sitting there hating everyone. No man that I learned that is capitalism home.
I've been a Jethro Tull fan since early 1969, sort of between the This Was album and right before Stand Up. There was a radio program in Chicago called Ron Britton's Subterranean Circus, which used to come on Sunday evenings at 8 until midnight. And they used to play all of the new music coming from Britain in America. And they were the first station that I ever heard play Jethro Tull, and I was an instant fan.
It's very difficult to cope with the idea of it being show business, because I don't like showbiz. I don't like the theatrical professions, and have no desire whatsoever to do pantomime, or play in clubs, or do any of the things that you might sort of do, or to make movies or anything. I mean, I just don't like any of that sort of stuff. And I think the beauty of being in a band like Jethro Tull and still surviving after this number of years is that we've done it on our terms and not really on anybody else's. And we may not be the biggest thing since sliced bread any longer, but we're still, you know, doing all right. I mean, we sold 1.5 million albums last year, and for a band that never got higher than 35 or something in the Billboard charts, I mean, that's not bad going. We sell steadily and consistently in a lot of marketplaces, and it's still got its merits, and there's a lot of people out there still buying the records, and still, you know, we may not play to 50,000 people every night, but, you know, we'd expect to sort of average 10, 15,000 people a night on the next tour, which is, you know, I dare say better than 98% of the people who will perform on Top of the Pops this year would play to, you know, because, I mean, most of them are obviously just, you know, one-hit single or two-hit singles and can't get arrested when it goes out to play the Edinburgh Playhouse or something, you know, let alone Madison Square Garden.
Going to start with one that you may well know. Cast your minds back, if you will, to 1972 or thereabouts and spot the tune. Really don't mind if you sit this one out. My words better whisper, your deafness, hey, shout. I may make you feel, but I can't make you think. Your sperm's in the gutter, your love's in the sink. Yeah. Saw you riding yourselves over the fields, and you make all your animal deals, and your wise men don't know how it feels.
I've travelled quite extensively within Europe.
How can you afford to do it?
Well, I can afford to do it by basically the reason that I work for British Rail and we get a good travel allowance.
Let me bring you songs from the woods to make you feel much better than you could know. Dust you down from tip to toe, and show you how the garden grows, and hold you steady as you go, and join the chorus if you can. it'll make of you an honest man. Let me bring you love from the field, poppies, red and roses filled with summer rain. The healing wound, the still the pain that threatens again and again as you drag down every lover's lane. Life's long celebrations here, I'll toast you all in many cheer. Let me bring you all things refined, galley hearts and little songs served in cherry ale. Greetings, well met, fellow hail. I am the wind to fill your sail. I am the cross to take your nail. The singer of these English times, with kitchen prose and gutter rhymes. Oh, songs from the book, may you build better. Songs from the book, may you build better.
And then they went on to Aqualung, which was really an explosion of their success in America, although it was the realization, if you like, of the effort that had been put into months and months of touring there. I mean, from '69, when we toured there 6 months a year, every year.
Everybody hold on!
I think it's going to be a very pretty day.
Keanu Reeves. Speed.
I'm never gonna make a fire.
Boys, you sure I can't make you a sandwich?
Oh, go away, Mum. Explorers don't eat sandwiches.
Of course not, sorry. Sometimes you just have to rise above it and do the best for them. Like giving them king's milk, baked longer for a better taste.
I'm starving. What's that noise? Oh, look, wow.
King's milk, it really is better bread.
Bring me a wheel of oaken wood, a ring of polished leather, a heavy horse and a tumbling sky, brewing heavy weather.
Well, they've done a couple of tours in Britain, and around that time you didn't expect them to come back. You saw them and you didn't see them for 3 or 4 years. And they came back, did another tour, an album, a live double album, which was long overdue. It was just a good year. There was a lot of Tull about. They were played on the radio, probably the last time. It was good to be a Tull fan in '78.
I got to know Jethro Tull somewhere in 1978, when I first heard at the party the Thick as a Brick album. And then I went out and bought which was just released, the Heavy Horses album.
feather feet pounding the dust on October's day towards evening. Sweat embossed veins standing proud to the plow. Salt on a deep chest, seasoning. Last of the line at an honest day's toil, turning the deep sod under. Glint at the fat log chasing the bone, bed on a warm straw coating. Petty horses move the land underneath. Behind the bow diving, slipping and sliding free. And now you're down to the view and there's no work to do. The tractor's out his way. Let me find you a filly for your proud stallion seed, to keep the old line going. And we'll stand you abreast at the back of the woods, behind the young trees growing, to hide you from eyes that mock at your girth, your 18 hands at the shoulder. And one day when the oil barrels have all dripped dry, and the nights are seen to draw older, they'll beg for your strength, your gentle power, your noble grace and your bearing. And you'll strain once again to the sound of the guns in the wake of the deep loud sharing. Heavy horses move the land underneath. Behind the bow diving, slipping and sliding free. And now you're down to the view and there's no work to do. The tractor's on his way.
And then when we got knocked a bit in the early 70s, I mean, once we'd gone out of the, being the latest sort of fashionable thing to like, once that had disappeared, we became the fashionable group to knock, along with other groups of our sort. Yes, Emerson, Lake and Palmer and so on. I mean, we all got our share of critical hammering. And I suppose in a way that was the thing that probably made me think, well, we should push on and at least survive the next era of trendy rock music, whatever it might be. It turned out to be the punk thing, return to basics and whatever else. I thought, well, at least we ought to try and outlive that and not just disappear having been smothered by a new wave, a new type of popular music.
They don't get the media coverage that you would expect a band to get, If they play a concert, it's sold out. But you won't read about it anywhere. There's no advance publicity and there are no reviews in NME sounds. They're not interested. But they're still a big band and there's a lot of fans out there who know nothing about what they're doing, what they have done.
Ian is in fish farming now. That's his job and music is just his hobby, so I don't know if he goes for another 20 years. In a wheelchair, perhaps.
Great.
I mean, he looked as old as he is now when he began, so, I mean, perhaps he gets younger.
luxury, yeah. Oh, oh, lap, lap of luxury.
healthy mentally, for me at any rate, to have something to do that is different. And I'm not from a farming background, but having elected to move out of London in the mid-70s, it seemed a good idea to come to an area that just allowed a bit of space, even if it's just 10 minutes here or once a week or once a month that I get out of it all. At least, you know, it's just knowing it's on your doorstep is what really counts for a lot.
She said she was a dancer. If I believed it, it was my business. She surely knew a thing or two about control. Next to the bar we hit the samovar. She almost slipped right through my fingers. It was snowing outside and in her soul. Well, maybe you're a dancer, and maybe I'm the king of old Siam. I thought it through, best to let the illusion roll. I wouldn't say I've never heard that tale before, my frozen little senorita. But if your dream is good, why not share it when the nights are cold? Hey, Moscow, what's your story? Lady, take your time, don't hurry. Maybe a student of the agricultural plan. Hey, Moscow, what's your name? If you don't want to say, don't worry. It would probably be hard for me to make it scan. With her phrase book in her silk soft hand, she spoke in riddles while the vodka listened. I said, let me look up love if I might be so bold. She was the nearest thing to rock and roll, that side of the velvet curtain that separates Eastern steel from Western gold. Hey, Miss Moscow, what's your story? You needn't speak aloud, just whisper. Am I just the closest thing to an Englishman? You've seen me in your magazines, or maybe on state television. I'm your Pepsi Cola, but you won't take me out the can.
There are so many delicious ingredients in a Cadbury's picnic bar. We can't fit them all into this commercial.
Look at that ground in grime. My regular liquid will never shift it. So I'm going to try this. It really does work.
So the chocolates in this one. Cadbury's Picnic, more yummy bits than the average break can take.
Hey, I wonder where the boys are taking us tonight.
I feel like a dance. Does my hair look all right?
Forget about your hair. What about your onion breath?
Oh, no problem. I've got some double mint.
After you eat, chew double mint gum. Double mint, double fresh. For that moment of double freshness, just when you need it.
Double mint refreshes your breath naturally.
It is, you know, quite fun, because I haven't done it now for almost a year since we were recording the last album, and prior to that it had been almost 3 years not being in the studio. So I have my little room here, you see, my bits and pieces of equipment in, which occasionally get dusted down, and you know, my boffin comes in to make sure everything works properly again, and we you know, have a go at it. And it's a lot more fun these days than it used to be, working in commercial recording studios when you are surrounded, or not perhaps surrounded, but you're working with an engineer, a tape operator, and various people that are buzzing around. Doing it at home's much more private. I mean, the equipment is essentially the same equipment. and the quality of the masters is essentially the same. Everything is mastered onto digital stereo finally. But it's the fact that you don't have to have anybody around at all. It's very private to come in here at 8 o'clock in the morning or 8 o'clock at night when you feel that you can do your best work, and to come in and do it and operate equipment yourself and not have anybody to be concerned with. I mean, arguably, I suppose working with people can be useful in the sense that they have ideas and, you can sort of achieve more with bouncing things off other people. But, I mean, for me, I think the music is essentially quite a private thing, and I much prefer just being alone. And the objectivity, I don't think really is terribly important. I mean, I think it's got to be a subjective experience, and sitting in here and working by myself, I mean, I get to where I want to go in the end, but I get to explore all the little avenues and alternatives without feeling that I'm wasting somebody else's time if they're sitting looking at their watch saying, "Christ, it's the third time he's tried to sing that verse already." So it's quite fun working on your own. I rather like it, although it does get to be a bit mesmerising if you've been doing it for 8 hours in a day, that you start seeing spots in front of your eyes, mostly coloured red.
I think she was a middle distance runner. The translation wasn't clear. Could be a budding stately hero. International competition in a year. She was a good enough reason for a party. Well, you couldn't keep up on a hard track mile. While she ran a perfect circle, and she wore a perfect smile. In Budapest, hot night in Budapest, we had to cozy up in the old gymnasium, dusting off the mandolins and checking on the gear. Was helping out at the backstage, stopping hearts and chilling beer. Yes, and her legs went on forever, like staring up at infinity. Through a wisp of cotton panties, along the skin of satin sea.
Over the years, we've had a lot of bits of fan mail and stuff like that come through to both the record company and come to me personally via various sources. But about 2 years ago, Chrysalis Records started getting a lot of mail that was generally along the lines of a recognition that it was the band's 20th anniversary and what was going to be done to commemorate that.
I would love to see another 20 years. I don't suppose we will, but they're as good now as they were then. They're not old men, B.B. King, Muddy Waters, all the greats go on for a long time. I would love to see them go on for another 20 years.
As the moon slips up and the sun sets down, I'm a high-rise jockey and I'm heaven-bound. To the workboat shuffle, loose frames from brawn. I'm a monkey puzzle and the lid is on. Can you guess my name? Can you guess my trade? I'm gonna catch it anyway. You might be right, I'll give you guesses 3. Feel me climbing up your knee. Guess what I am? I'm a steel monkey. above the ground. Well, can you guess my name? Can you guess my trade? Well, I won't rest before the world is made. Arm in arm, the angels fly, keep me from falling out the sky. Still monkey, still monkey, still monkey. Drinking and I feel no pain. I work on women till they want me tough. You can have me crying all over you. Let me guess my name, let me guess my trade. I'm cheap at the money I get paid. In this university, where men are men, we both those beams and climb again.
You form this stereotype about the punters just as they probably do about you. And after a while you realise, well, hang on, we're all not really that different. And I mean, it would be very disappointing if you, I mean, at the age of 40, which, let's face it, is what I am, it would be very disappointing if I, after all that time, was going on stage now thinking, I was playing to whatever it might be, 2,000 or 20,000 people, and I couldn't have a drink in the pub with them. You know, it'd be disappointing, I think, to feel that. And as things have turned out, I mean, I feel I could have a drink in the pub, but don't expect me to pay.
Well, I don't think he can go for another 20 years yet, can he?
In the dark of the city, backward something stirs, then slips away. Law and order in darkest nights, bridge crime and punishment and play. Yeah, Mr. Policeman, won't you come on over? Up me up to the power lines, oh, your love. Jump starts, tow me away. Jump starts, tow me away. Through the bruised machinery, the smoking haze of industry. Another day with ball and chain, I do my time and home again. Yeah, Mrs. Maggie, won't you come on over? Put me up to the power lines, all your love. Jump starts, tow me away. Jump starts, tow me away. Should I blame the officers on me behind? Should blame the priest? Or should I blame the poor foot soldier who's left to make the most police? Hey, Jack the Ripper, won't you come on over? Put me up to the power lines, oh, love. Put me up to the power lines, oh, love. Jump start, can blame the newsman talking at you on the satellite TV. If you're fighting for your shipyard, you might as well just blame the sea. Mr. Weatherman, come on over, put me under the power lines, I won't know. Jumpstart, Tony Ray. Jumpstart, Tony Ray.
Once age does enter into it, then it's time to stop. But right now, I get the feeling they don't care whether I'm 40 or 20 or whatever. I mean, you know, I would like to be the Lee Marvin of rock and roll. You know, I mean, it doesn't matter that he was 60. He was still a tough guy and, you know, a bit of a rogue and a villain. You know, Richard Harris, Peter O'Toole, those sort of guys. I mean, you know, I'd like to be one of those.
Make an appointment with fear this Friday at 11:10.
The current vacancies